Recording. So thanks everybody for taking the time to join me today. My name is Sally Cox and I'll introduce myself a little bit more in just a minute, but we are using Adobe Connect for this, so I am recording it, and I just want to mention to you, please feel free to jot anything in the chat window if you have any questions. If you have a microphone and you would like to try to speak to me, just send me a message in the chat window. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume you'll type any questions or comments in the chat window. I do have dual monitors so I can see if you post any questions or comments. I am recording this, so I'll share the link with you afterwards. My user group, my Adobe user group, is creativecloudsanjose.com, and that's where this event was posted, so that's where I will be posting the link to the recording. So Linda is typing something, so I'm just going to wait a second. See if she has a question. Oh, sure. Is that distracting? Sure, I'll get rid of it. It's just a timer I had up before. Okay. And you should be able to go full screen if you want to. Hang on, I did that to myself. I didn't mean to do that. You should be able to turn yours on full screen if you want to, but otherwise I'm ready to get started. Okay, so I am going to be showing you some of the things that I do in iPhoneography. I'm not saying that my way is the right way. Everybody has their own style, and you just have to find your own style. I see a lot of things on Instagram that I'm not a big fan of, and I'm sure other people feel the same way about my stuff. So you just have to find what works for you. I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of the apps that I use and just give you some basic tips on making your photos look better. And again, whether you like my style or not, I think you can get something from this webinar. So let me just get started here. Oops, there we go. Okay, so this is a little bit about me in case you do not know me. My name is Sally Cox. I have been an Adobe software trainer for a great many years, and I just recently, in the last few years, switched over to doing a lot more e-learning and instructional design, but I'm still very heavily involved in Adobe software. I'm an Adobe community professional. I run an Adobe user group. And my user group again is creativecloudsanjose.com. We do weekly meetings, monthly meetings in the Bay Area. We usually meet in the Adobe building in San Jose, but we also do photo walks and we do online events like this one as well. This is something I do every month that I call Coffee Talk that I do with my group. So bring your own coffee for this one. Okay, so I have worked for Adobe as an art director, and I also, a couple highlights of my career. The other one is working for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I was a set designer and created props for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when I was much younger. My company is creatable.com, so you can find me everywhere under Creatable. My Instagram account is Creatable. My website is creatable.com. I'm everywhere under that name. So these days I specialize in instructional design, e-learning, digital publishing. The rest of this you can just read quickly. I don't really need to go through all of it, except that second one from the bottom. I'm never far from my iPhone. I do have two Nikon cameras sitting here in my filing cabinet at home, and I rarely use them anymore. I do have my iPhone with me all the time, and if I can find a way to take it into the shower with me, I would, because I'm never far from my iPhone. So, when we do photo walks in the Bay Area, I take my iPhone with me because it's just what I do now. It's an easy, accessible camera, and it's getting, each version of the iPhone, it gets better. So, so I love it. So, let me make sure I'm on the right slide. There we go. Okay, so what is iPhoneography? iPhoneography is the art of creating images with your iPhone. And as I said, everybody has their own style. Feel free to not like mine if you don't want to, but I have developed my own style based on the fact that I love art history. There are certain styles of art that I love, and so I just kind of focus on making beautiful art that's beautiful to me, I should say, with my iPhone. So reasons to get into iPhoneography: you have your iPhone with you all the time. If you're like me, you do. You may not always have your camera with you. So as I said, when we do our monthly events in the Bay Area, we do photo walks. They're a lot of fun. Some people show up with tripods and packs full of equipment, which is perfectly fine. I show up with my iPhone, and both of us get great pictures, but mine's a little bit easier to carry. And any iPhone will do, but obviously the newer ones have better cameras. I have a 5. I don't have the most recent one, but I know the new ones are just have a really even better camera than the one that I have. So I'm going to start off by just giving you some basic guidelines. These are my own thoughts on things that I have learned, and some of these are just basic photography rules as well. But again, you can get amazing pictures with an iPhone if you just kind of keep some of these basic design rules in mind. Number 1, don't move. One of the things I see more than anything else is blurred iPhone pictures. It makes me crazy. I see people posting pictures of themselves at weddings and their profile pics, and they would have been great pictures, but they're blurry because people just don't take the time to just sit still or stand still to take the picture. They're moving. And so by all means, make sure you take the time to stand still to get a decent picture. So you want to stabilize yourself and hold your iPhone firmly. I know that sounds very basic, but I'm sure you have all seen blurry iPhone pictures, and it just makes me nuts because they could be beautiful pictures, but they're ruined because they're blurry. Concentrate and think about the composition. Now, I don't always compose my pictures when I'm taking them. A case in point would be probably all of these that are on the screen here, particularly number 4. Those are my favorite sneakers, and they were just sitting on my needlepoint rug in my bedroom, and I snapped a picture of them. They were in the center of the picture when I took it. I thought that was kind of boring, so once I did my little iPhone magic on it, I actually cropped the photo. I thought it was much more interesting, the composition that I had there, than to just have them centered in the middle. So I can't sit here and tell you that they're always, that I sat there and thought about that when I was taking the picture. I just cropped it later to give it a more interesting shot. The number 2 picture there was a pair of ornate door handles on an old building in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the original picture had much more of the doors around the outside. I wanted to focus in on the ornateness of the handles, so I cropped it afterwards. I don't know what colors. Oh, colors are great. Oh, thank you. I do like very colorful photos, and again, that's not for everyone. That's okay. That's just my thing. Number 1 there was actually from a salvage lighting store in Sacramento, California. I could have spent 3 days in that store. I love lamps and lighting fixtures. I just think they're so cool. And so I just, instead of just taking the picture at eye level, I looked up, there was a skylight, and they had a lot of the lighting hanging from the skylight, and I just took an unusual angle of a photo. But again, that one I cropped a bit just to make it more interesting. And then number 3 is from the Winchester Mystery House, and that one I just took out of a 2nd or 3rd story window. It's such a kooky house, and I believe that one I also cropped as well, just to hone in on the main thing that I wanted to focus on. So back to my list here. Look at lighting, especially with moving subjects. Number 2 is in Indianapolis. So number 1 was the salvage lighting store in Sacramento, California. Number 2 was a farmer's market building in Indianapolis, Indiana. Number 3 is Winchester Mystery House in San Jose. And number 4 was in my bedroom. So back up here to this list again. So number 4, look at lighting, especially with moving subjects. I get the most amazing pictures by doing things with lighting that, and I'm not a professional photographer. If you tried shooting into the sun with a regular camera, you probably would get nothing but crap. I do it all the time with my iPhone, and I get amazing lens flare results and just some really cool pictures. So just try things, try different things. Looking at lighting, especially with moving subjects. I do use a couple night apps. One I like the most is called Night Modes. And that one allows me, when I'm out walking my dogs at night, if I see something cool. There was a pattern on the sidewalk that someone had those solar lights on the sidewalk, and they had like a crystal pattern that was portrayed onto the sidewalk, and I wanted to get a good picture of it, but it was really dark out, and I used that app called Night Modes, and I got a really cool shot. So opt for natural light whenever possible. That goes without saying. But again, you can do a lot in post-processing with the different apps. More can be better. Take lots of shots. That's absolutely true, and I do that as well. Quite often, I really just take 2 or 3. I usually see a composition I like, and I don't take 50 shots. But if it's a big event, there's nothing wrong with taking more. More is always better. So try different angles and composition is kind of the theme of this slide. These are just some of my favorite photos that I've taken. I like that number 4 one a whole lot, just because they're my favorite shoes, and also I just thought the composition was really much more interesting than just centering it in the middle. So come on, slides, there we go. So most people, I think, sadly don't even know this about their own iPhone. The camera doesn't actually take the photo until you take your finger off the button. So holding down on it doesn't cause the photo to be taken. It's when you release. So line up your shot, lift your finger when you're ready, and again, please stabilize yourself. Enough with the blurry iPhone pictures. It's maddening. So let me know in the chat window, are you seeing a lot of blurry iPhone pictures, or is it just me? It's not just me. Okay, good. I thought so. Okay. So focus on your subject. So touch the screen where you want to focus. So these are 2 examples. The one on the left is a cat in my neighborhood, and you can see that the foreground and the background are a little bit blurry, but I touched the screen. Believe it or not, that cat sat there until I could actually get a picture of him or her. I touched the screen where the cat's face was, and that causes the iPhone to focus in on that area. And so, that's one way that you can do it. Obviously, you can always also do it post-processing. I could have easily just gotten that whole photo in focus and then just done the blurring afterwards if I wanted to. So Jessica says, as a DSLR photographer, I was given a tip to take a deep breath, hold it, then snap your photo. It even works when I do iPhone photos. Takes a lot of the shakiness out of my hands. That's an excellent tip. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really good tip. So take a deep breath and hold it if you have to, just to kind of keep your camera steady. Absolutely. And Denise is sharing something, so I'm just going to wait a minute. I don't use a tripod with my phone. I know other people do, and I have one. I just don't often use it, and I don't have any brands to recommend to anyone. If anybody has any thoughts on that, Denise, have you used a tripod with your phone? It's a great idea. Usually, what I do if I can balance myself, I touch something solid with my pinky that helps me to balance myself, but I bet a tripod would be so much better. I have one of those little, is it called a Gorilla, the little portable ones? Use the self-timer app and prop the phone in various places. That's great. I need to experiment more with that, so that's great. Thanks for sharing. So we have a couple other comments coming through. So while we're waiting, I'm just going to talk about the one on the right. In this one, this was just a cute little scene in my neighborhood. And again, I cropped it way down afterwards. Docs says, tripods would work with a shy animal if you remote trigger the shutter. Absolutely. Absolutely. That cat was not very shy, though. He sat there the whole time. I'm not a big cat lover, but that is one beautiful cat. So back to the photo number 2 there with the trucks. I just love that. I walk by there with my dogs all the time, and they are just, those trucks just sit there in various positions all the time, and I thought I got to get a shot of this. So again, I focused on the trucks, this in the center plane of the photo, and then everything else before it and after it is blurred. Now I could have very easily have done this in one of the apps that I use. Facetune has a nice defocus and blur feature. I also could use Photoshop Touch. I could use Filter Storm. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'll be showing you some of those as we go along here. If the image is a bit less professional because there's no tripod involved, the sentiment of the photo is a pure challenge and is as interesting as professional stuff. That's a good point. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so here's some more tips of mine. Hopefully most of you have heard of the rule of thirds. I use it in most instances. I actually took a photo the other day at Santana Row here in San Jose, and a really interesting palm tree. I'll show it to you later. And the palm tree was smack in the center of the photo. I rarely do that, but I liked it the way it was. Most of the time I try to use the rule of thirds. So to keep things from being centered right in the middle of your image, which can be extremely boring. So these are 3 examples. The one on the number 1 on the left is from Niles, California, one of my favorite places to go and shop for antiques. It's like stepping back in time. It's just an old-fashioned town. I love it. And I thought that, you know, to me, the flag is pretty much the focus of the photo. I cropped this one afterwards, I'm not going to lie, but I also like the fact that it's not smack in the center of the photo. And the flag, when you're looking at the flag, the stripes of the flag kind of lead you down to looking at the 2 people who are walking away. So I thought that one was a really nice crop. I enjoyed that one. The one in the middle is my crazy teenage daughter riding a motorbike in shorts, and you know, once I got over the shock of that, I cropped this one as well after the photo was taken. She took this, a friend of hers took this with her iPhone, so I didn't take this shot. But she was in the center of the photo, and I thought this was much more interesting to have her off to the side, so I just took it upon myself to crop the photo after I got over the shock of my daughter riding a motorbike in shorts. And then number 3, that is a hibiscus plant that I was growing on my back porch. And again, I like the fact that the blossom is off to the side. So you can really make a lot more interesting effects by changing the composition. Just because you took the photo a certain way doesn't mean you have to keep it that way. Okay, and that's what I meant with the tripod, no snapshot. The effect is lost, most of the bike thing. I'm not sure I understand what your point is. With a tripod, no snapshot, the effect is lost, most of the bike thing. Okay. I'll wait till you add another thought there. So are most of you using this basic rule when you take photos? I'm hoping that you are. If not, start thinking about it, and whether you're cropping the photo as you're taking it or whether you crop it afterwards, just keep that in mind. It just makes for a much more interesting photo. Docs, I figured you probably did. So I'll just wait for a couple more comments to come through. So if you prepare the tripod, you would lose the snapshot idea. Okay. Use the same in video. Also, you'd wait for too long. Yeah, that is a good point about the. I think I see where you're going with the whole snapshot and tripod thing. If I was taking a picture of my flowers aren't going to move, but to get a good action shot of that bike, there's no way I could make the tripod thing work. So you know, it just depends on the subject. Yes, and the iPhone does have a grid option if you want to turn that on as well. You can do that. Thank you for bringing that up, Vivian. I don't often do that because I think I have a pretty good eye for it, but the grid is really helpful as well. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is depth of field. And so again, creating more visual interest with your images by establishing the subject with depth of field. You can create it while you're shooting it or afterwards with a variety of apps. I have to be honest, I almost always do it afterwards. I don't have time to stop and think for a minute. I have an iPhone 5. I don't often have time to stop and think about making the depth of field, thinking about the depth of field while I'm shooting it. I'm not sure if that's the right or wrong way. It's just what I do. So, this one on the left, number 1, that's my daughter on the left at a concert. And I didn't have the time to stop and think about the depth of field. I took the photo on the left. I wanted to focus in on them a little bit more. In that particular photo, I used an app called Facetune. And there is a defocus and a blur feature that you can use to just kind of blur out the background. I thought it was much more interesting to be able to focus in on them and not see the background in focus. So that's that one. All of these I did post-processing. Number 2, I have to be honest with you, sometimes when I'm looking for images to use in an iPhoneography webinar, number 2 and 3, these were both taken in Pier 1 imports. Sometimes I go to cool furniture stores, or Pier 1 always has great displays. It's a great place to go and get, I love to do still life images. And so it's a great place to go as long as they don't get mad at you for snapping a bunch of pictures in their store. No one's ever chased me out. But places like that are good places to find nice arrangements that you can get images from. There are a couple furniture stores down in Santana Row in San Jose. And I like to go in and they do beautiful arrangements. I love to just snap pictures in there. So that's a great tip if you're looking for some photos to add to your iPhoneography portfolio. That's a great way to do it. Number 2, like I said, is from Pier 1 Imports. This is another one that I used. I used several apps on that particular image, but I also used Facetune in that one to blur out the background. I darkened it a bit first in Photoshop Touch, and then I blurred it out in Facetune. I thought it was much more interesting to be focusing in on the statue instead of seeing all that light in the background. That's just my opinion. I thought it was too distracting having all that going on in the background. I was looking at that and not looking at the subject. And then number 3 are those adorable salt and pepper shakers, and that was also from Pier 1. That one, I had a little depth of field with it, but I went in and enhanced it even further just by blurring out the background. Okay, and then if you're not familiar with the term, we use something called app stacking. I am notorious for using multiple apps. So K. Jurgen says, in case there's interest, you had to save all your photos on your iPhone 3GS. Everything could be saved with Phone Sync app. Worked perfect. Also, iPod photos were saved that way. Then you could edit them with Photoshop. Okay, thanks. So app stacking is where you use multiple apps on the same photo. I almost always do that. That's how you can get some really cool effects. The one on the left here, number 1, is in a little town in trying to remember the name of it. It's in Indiana. It's a beautiful little town that's along a river. They have these old-fashioned river boats. The name is escaping me right now. But anyway, I used an app. I used several apps on that one. I used one called Snapseed to oversaturate the images. I love my images to have a lot of color to them. So I always saturate my images. It's very rare that I don't. So that one I used Snapseed to saturate it. I used an app called Shock My Pic that doesn't have a whole lot of settings, but does some really cool kind of painter effects. And then I pulled that into Photoshop Touch and did some final blending in Metamora. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. How did you know that? That's fantastic. Have you been there? It's a fabulous little place. Wow, I'm impressed that you knew that. 2 weeks ago. Oh, I love it there. I spent 3 months in Indiana in 2011, and I went there. I visited all 35 covered bridges in Park County, which is just west of Indianapolis. It's a beautiful area of the country. It's Indiana. Indiana, which is kind of, I guess, almost in the middle of the country. Okay, and number 2 here is in Munich, Germany. That is a beautiful place called and I'm going to botch the name, the Marienplatz, I guess, in Munich. gorgeous, gorgeous place. And that one, I know I used a bunch of apps on that one. I know the sky did not look like that, so I used the town hall. It's right, exactly. So I used an app called Photoshop to add a little bit of of depth to the sky, and I used a couple different apps on that one. I know I used Snapseed on that one as well, and maybe even Photoshop Express. And number 3 is one that I took in the De Young Museum in San Francisco a few weeks ago. And I love that one. I used a couple different apps on that one as well. I believe I used Auto Painter for number 3. I used Auto Painter, and I did use Snapseed to saturate it. And then I'll show you the trick that I do in Photoshop Touch with almost all of my images. When I used Auto Painter, and there's 3 different Auto Painter apps, and I'll show them to you in a bit. When I used Auto Painter, the faces were unrecognizable. It was just too blurry. And so I pull it into Photoshop Touch, and I pull the original image in on a separate layer in Photoshop Touch, and I use blending modes. That's my number 1 trick that I don't know if anyone else is doing it, but I've developed that for myself, and I love it. That way I can add a little bit of the original photo back in again. And then number 4 is one that I did. I used an app called Lumie, Lumie, to add those lens flare lights to it. And I know I also changed the color with Photoshop Touch, and I think I also used Filter Storm on that one. So that's called app stacking. Some people would cringe at the thought of overworking photographs like this, and I respect that if that's not your thing. It happens to be very much my thing. It makes my daughter cringe when she sees photos of herself that I've done. She does not like them, but I love it. And they're not the original looking photos. I mean, they don't look so much like photos anymore. They look like artwork, and that's the look I'm going for. So the point I want to make here is you need to find your own style, find what works for you. There are certain people I follow on Instagram who I think are fabulous, and I think I might have a slide where I talk about it here, but does it say there? Oh, I list the apps I use with hashtags on Instagram and IM, and I also recently just started an account on IPA, which stands for iPhone Art. A lot of people are getting away from Instagram because you lose control over how they use your photos. I'm not an expert at that, and again, I'm not making a living doing iPhoneography. It's just something, well, I sort of am. I do webinars on it, but it's something I love. If you were a professional photographer and you're posting your professional photos on Instagram, I probably would be a little bit more leery, because I think you give up a lot of rights to your photos on Instagram. So 2 other sites that people are using on their phone, I have an account there, and then I just opened one with iPhone Art, so it's the IPA app, stands for iPhone Art. Those are 2 other ones that I'm starting to use more. I just need more hours in the day to keep up with all of this stuff, but absolutely I use those. Okay, so, and then I'll just go back. I think this might be my last slide here, but I want to make the point that every image has potential. The image on the left is an image I took in my neighborhood. As I mentioned, I absolutely love to shoot into the sun. I get some really amazing effects. I've taken some trips down to San Diego for business, and I just go out on the beach and shoot right into the sun with palm trees, and I get some amazing things that I wouldn't dream of doing with a regular camera. So this image on the left is just in my neighborhood, and it's nothing all that exciting. And I went into some of the apps on my phone, and I just kind of worked my magic on it. I actually really like the one on the right. So I went in and applied, I know I saturated it in Snapseed. I also used an app called Lens Flare to really bump up that whole lens flare look that the sun was giving. And I just applied a couple different apps to it, added a cool looking Polaroid kind of border, and then I cropped the heck out of it, so it was a lot more interesting. And you may not like it, and that's okay, but I ended up loving the image on the right. I think it turned out really great. Thank you, Jessica. And so the point here is I was ready to delete the one on the left because I was out walking my dogs and I was snapping pictures, and it just wasn't all that exciting. And I thought, I'm just going to spend a little time on it, and I love how it turned out. So, have fun, experiment, start just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, and get some different techniques, and you may not like the image when you get it home, but if you play with it a little bit, you might be able to get it to, to a place where you're really happy with it. So those are my slides. I used those when I did an iPhoneography session for Creative Live. So I'm going to actually launch Reflector now, and I'll be able to show you some of the apps on my phone. And while we're waiting, does anyone have any questions or comments? Give me just a minute to get my phone up here. There we go. Okay, so please excuse my messy desktop. Now I'll just show you all of my private messages. Okay, so I'm just going to start by showing you some of the apps that I use. As you can see, I have about 250 apps on here just for photography, and I organize them in folders. So I have a lot of I'm into apps. Can you tell? So I'm going to go to my iPhone number 1 here, my iPhoto number 1, and just talk a little bit about some of the ones that I use the most. So Photoshop Express is a free app. Everybody should have Photoshop Express, in my opinion. Policious, yes, absolutely. Good one, Linda. I love this one mainly because it's free. Although I will buy any app, I will pay almost any price for any app because I just love them. But here, let me tell you a little bit about this one. Now, they just updated it recently, and unfortunately, I don't like it as well as I used to. It's a lot more automatic now than it was before. It used to be all manual, but I'm getting over that. So let me just find an image here. So this is one I took of my dogs the other day at, whoops, not that one. Is that the right one? Here it is. I took this one of my dogs at Santana Row. There's my finger in the photo. Obviously, when you have 2 dogs, it's kind of hard to hold your hand steady. So I ended up going in and cropping this image to get my hand out of there. But I just want to show you a little bit about working with this one. Here's my crop right here at the bottom, second from the left. So I can go in here and crop. So if I wanted to crop my hand out, of course, nothing's working for me right now the way it should be. That's par for the course. Okay, so there's my crop. And then I can then move on, for example, to, I didn't crop my whole finger out, but the middle button with the little sliders gives you a bunch of settings at the bottom. And I'm a big saturation person, and in Photoshop Express, it's referred to as vibrance. So I can go over to that one, and I can just bump up the saturation of this photo just to increase the colors. It's still a little dark, so I think I went into shadows, and I was able to pull out a little bit of Lily there in the shadows. So I can go in, there's a red eye feature, you can add borders to the photos. There's a lot you can do with this app. It's a lot more automatic than it used to be, and I still use it, but I wish they had just kind of left it alone. But most people don't want to go in and do all the fine-tuning that I do. They just want, I don't like the expression, but quick and dirty. And so they've added a lot of automatics. Can you straighten the horizon? Not in here. You can rotate it. I don't know that you can. Yeah, you can't. Not in here you can't. I have to think if I have an app that allows you to just straighten the horizon. Let me think about that a little. And this one on the far left is the one that has the presets. So you can choose to make something normal, vibrant. You can make it autumn, where you warm up the colors a little bit. Spring and summer, warm it up even more. Winter cools it down. So you can kind of get a little bit of a preview down here at the bottom. There's a lot you can do here with a free app. So it's pretty amazing. To send your pics to your desktop, I use Dropbox. That's right. I have the Dropbox app, and I use that. So that would be my #1 way of doing it. The other thing you can do is you can send them to Dropbox right here on your phone, but you can also set up Dropbox that every time you plug your phone in, they automatically go in Dropbox. That's actually what I do. So I have it every time I plug in my phone. They don't go to iPhoto, they go to Dropbox. And then I use Adobe Bridge. And I go in, if you have Adobe Photoshop, you have Bridge also, and I use Bridge to go in. That way I can see thumbnails of all my images, and I delete the ones I don't want, and then they all go onto one of my, I've got a couple 2 terabyte drives, and I just save them by month and year. So everything gets saved because you never know when I'll want to use it again. So this is Photoshop Express. It's a very good app for being plain. Check out IFT. You take a pic and it will automatically go to Dropbox or Flickr or wherever you want. Oh, really? Oh, I'll look into that. Thank you, Denise. So when you're done with the image, then you can click the little button at the top and it allows you to go out and send it to your camera roll, send it to Twitter, whatever you want to do. I never send anything anywhere without saving it to my camera roll first. That's just me because I want a hard copy of it, so to speak. So that's Photoshop Express. It's a nice little basic app. I use that one a lot. Photoshop Touch is the one I use more than any other, and I'll get back to that one in a minute. Snapseed is a Google app. It's also free. This one I like very much. I don't use everything in here. I'll show you what I do use. It looks like that you can straighten images in here. I haven't really done that, but we can try it. I click the little plus sign at the top and it allows me to go out and find an image. So let me find, this is one I took, actually this is the original. This is an image I took when I was at Santana Row, just some basic old water pipes or whatever those are, and I wanted to do something cool with it. So the first thing I wanted to do was go in and saturate it. And I do use Photoshop Express sometimes, but I actually use Snapseed more. So if you look at the bottom, you have all these different categories. I'm moving it, but you can't see it. Okay, you can click and scroll there. Now they're moving a little. I seem to have a little bit of a delay here this morning. So if you see where it says Tune Image, if you click on that one, so it seems like there's almost a 5-second delay when I click on something. That's odd. Wow. You're not seeing it on this. There it is. Okay. So when you click on Tune Image, you have all these different categories. You scroll up and down to change the category, and saturation is the one I like. And then you do left and right to change the amount of saturation. So here I'm bumping it up. And if I'm going to take it into another app and turn it into artwork, I usually oversaturate it. So looking at that now, it may look oversaturated to you on the screen. It doesn't look nearly that bad on my phone, but I would do something like that. Now you can click the X at the bottom if you change your mind. You can click the check mark if you want to accept it. And then the little button at the top right allows you to save the image, or you can go on and do more. Now here's straighten. Looks like you can. Here's whoever asked about straightening the image, this would be a good app for it. So it puts a little grid on the screen, and then it looks like I can go in here and type in. Let me see, can I type in how much? I'm rotating it by hand. So this would be the one you'd want to use. And then I can hit the check mark to apply it. So this is Snapseed. I love this app. I use this app all the time. I just think it's fantastic. Other things that you can do with it, you can straighten, you can crop, you can sharpen, you can turn something into black and white, you can give it a vintage look, you can add drama. One of the new features is HDR Escape. I haven't spent a lot of time on that one, but there are some cool things that you can do with this one as well. You can also add a grunge look, you can center focus, you can do tilt shift, add frames around the edges. It's really a fantastic little app. I love it. Okay, so that was Snapseed. 100 Cameras is one that I used a lot when I was first starting out. I haven't been using it as much lately, but it does have some cool effects. So it's called 100 Cameras in One. Anybody want to guess how many filters it has? Just roughly guess, since it's called 100 Cameras. Okay, that was a joke and nobody's grabbing it. Okay. 100, yes. You guys are sleeping on the job over there. Okay, so I'm going to choose Create from Library and go out and find an image. So this is one of my necklaces that I love in my collection. And give it a second to come up. Wow, there's a real delay today. Maybe I should have hardwired my phone into my computer. That might have helped. Okay, so I can control here how I want to crop the image, and I always crop things off center a little bit. So I'm going to click choose. And this one has a bunch of different filters that you can apply. It gives you a thumbnail so you can kind of see what it looks like. Some of these are just going to flat out ruin the image, but some of them are pretty cool. So for example, and they've got funny names. If I like glowing ember, and then I can come in here and I have a control that I can set. So it seems like my delay is less now than it was. If you like that effect and you want to add another one over top of it, you can then choose Add Effect. If you don't like it, you can click the back button at the top, which is what I'm doing. And then you can scroll through. I'm hitting the little arrow at the bottom, and you can scroll through and see a bunch of different effects. This one, for example. The app does not give it those names. That's just the name of the filter that it's applying. So no, it's not going to name it that. And so, you know, you can apply different effects here. I kind of like that because I'm getting a lot more detail out of the fabric in the background. So this one's kind of cool. And then you can click at the bottom left to save your image, or you can share right from here. I kind of like this one too because it's really showing me the detail of that's a lace skirt that it's laying on top of. So I like that one too. And then you can go to share it. I always save it first. I'm big on saving things and not posting them to social media because I want a copy of it. And then there's a little frame button down there if you want to add a cool frame afterwards as well. That one's called 100 Cameras. I do like it. Oh, sorry, I didn't turn off my notifications. I do like it, but I have so many that I go through stages where I use this one, then I forget I have it. Okay, so that's 100 Cameras. Shock My Pick is another one that I like. It doesn't have any filters, and frankly, it's not very user-friendly. I mean, you open it and this is what you see. So I found out I have to click on the screen and then I can go in and open an image. So for example, if I go in and open this one again, you might be able to see it on this. It gives kind of a, yeah, you can't really see it too well. It gives, hang on. It gives kind of a, okay, it's not letting me, oh, I guess I can't zoom in on it. I'm trying to double click to zoom in on it. It's not letting me. It just gives it kind of like a watercolor, or more like an acrylic painted effect. It's called Shock My Pick, P-I-C. I do use this one, but you don't have a whole lot of control over the settings. You can control the output, but it's not the most user-friendly app. But it does create some cool effects. I have to say it does, and I do like it. Okay, so that's called Shock My Pick. That's another one that I use. Tangled is probably one of my all-time favorite apps. This one is freaking awesome. I love this app. I'm just going to go out here and now the first thing you want to do is you want to go up to the gear at the top and you want to go under General and you want to tell it to use Advanced Effect Settings. That's not turned on by default. And I really couldn't get into this app in the beginning because it was using all its own presets, and I wasn't really crazy about any of them. And then a friend said to me, go in and turn on the advanced effects settings. Actually, my friend Michael Clausen. If you're on Instagram, you might want to follow him. He's under Big Fish, B-I-G-F-I-S-H. We have very different styles, but we've done a lot of events together on iPhoneography, and he's super. And he's very good at sharing his techniques too. So turn on the advanced effects, and then if I go out here and open an image, and I'm going to go out here and find something. Okay, so is this one tangled already? Let me see if it is. No, it's not. Okay, so this is an image I saw at, this is a scene I saw at Santana Row, and I love what it does with this one. Now if you look at the bottom, you have all these different buttons that you can choose. I'm not big on some of these. I don't like the fibers one. It's just kind of freaky to me. And there, everything, I mean, it's so over-processed, but if you click the little tune button on the bottom right, you can go in here and control how much it's scaled. You can change the stroke size. You can go in here and boost the color. So you do have control over all of this stuff. The fiber ones, I'm not crazy about. I mean, that doesn't look so bad. That's kind of cool, right? The one in here that I use the most is called Small Details. That's the one I love because it really does a beautiful job. Now that looks, it's not as over processed looking as the other one was. So Small Details is one I use a lot. Depending on the image, sometimes the dark side is kind of cool. Now that one's, if that's too thick of a stroke around the outside edges for you, again, you can go into your tune and you can adjust the stroke size and adjust the smudge size and all that. So this one has a lot of control. And then when you're ready to export it, you can click the button at the top right and you can actually save a preview, or so right here you can see that it says Save Preview because it can make really big files. So if you want to take this and have this professionally printed, you could. But what you want to do instead of just saving the preview in that case is go back to your image and you want to go up here and click the button at the top. So it said Preview, now it's making it full size. And you know, I'm wireless here with my phone, so I'm not sure if it's going to crash on me. We'll find out. See, that's the dark side. That one's very dark, but I might actually pull that into Photoshop Touch the way I normally do. I'll show you my trick that I use in Photoshop Touch to go in and really pull back detail on this image by combining it with the original image. So that one's actually kind of cool. I might actually save that one, but I'm not going to save the full size. I'm going to go back to the preview. So I'm going to save my preview. And again, this is called Tangled FX, and I love it. And give me just a second to close some of these apps here because I have a lot open. I think I did, maybe not. Okay, I guess I didn't have that much. So here's the one that I use. I'll show you many more apps, but this is my biggest secret that I use. Photoshop Touch. It's 10 bucks. It's the most expensive app I've ever bought, but I use this all day long. I love Photoshop Touch. And it's made by Adobe. And so you can see I have a whole bunch of images in here. I use this for everything. I use it for all my self-portraits. So I'll show you some of the tricks that I use here. So for example, at the bottom, and I want to point out that if you have, whether you have the paid Creative Cloud or whether you have a free version, the free one allows you to have 2 gig of cloud space so that you can store your images in it and then you can get them, pull them into Photoshop on your computer at home. So whether you have the free one or the paid one, you could click that button at the bottom left and sync it with your Creative Cloud account. The middle button at the bottom allows me to bring a new image in. So I'm going to click that one and click the plus sign, or the one with the plus sign rather. I can go out and grab an image off my Creative Cloud account. I can make a blank document if I want to. Or I can take a picture right now, or I can go to my photo library. So I'm going to grab the one that I just did in Tangled. And it's cool, but it doesn't have a lot of, I feel like I lost a lot of detail. I was there, so I know what it is, but other people looking at it might not know. So here's what I'm going to do. In the bottom right-hand corner here, you have layers. If I click that button and click the plus sign, I can add another layer. So I'm going to bring the original image back in again. I'm going to choose Photo Layer. And I'm going to choose Bring It In from the photo library, and I'm going to go out and find the original image, which is, give me a second here to find it. There it is. So I brought the original image in over top of it. They both happen to be the same size, so there's no resizing needed. I'm going to click the check mark. So now I have 2 layers. I have the original image on the top and the tangled one on the bottom. And the one on the top is actually highlighted. You can see that it's got a gray background. That tells you that's the one you're targeting. And then this little button to the left of the plus sign allows me to go in and do things to that layer. So I can go in here and apply, for example, I can apply multiply. Well, there's some funky special effects going on there. And then I can cut back a little bit, or maybe I might want to try lighten since it's such a dark image. I can apply my different blending modes. So there's an example right there. I got the original image. The tangled effect is still there, but I'm using some of the original image with the blending mode to get some of my detail back. So for example, here's the before, and then There's the after. So it still has that kind of tangled arty effect, but I got some of the detail back. This is something I do more than anything else. And I do other things in here, but almost every image that I go in and process, I try to get some of the quality back and some of the detail back by pulling it in and using this effect. So again, your layers are down here. Sometimes, I think I showed you that image before from Milan where it had a really boring sky. Here's another thing that I do in Photoshop Touch. I can use the plus sign to add an empty layer and then click done. So now I have an empty layer. And up here, the little ampersand, if you click that, I can add a gradient. And I have a few gradients already saved. Now I'm pulling a gradient in and I can adjust how I want this gradient to be. You can see me dragging it here. And then I click the plus sign. Now that looks stupid, but if I go into the blending mode and I adjust, maybe make it multiply or something like that, then I can really, I really was able to bump up the color in the sky just by adding that gradient and applying a blending mode to it. Now the one thing Photoshop Touch doesn't have that I wish it did is it doesn't have a masking feature. So if you want to mask your images, and maybe, you know, if I only wanted to use the tangled effect on the building here but not on anything else, I would have to go in and erase in here, and I'm not a big fan of that. You can do it, but I try to do non-destructive editing, ha ha ha, even though I'm processing the hell out of my images. That's so funny to me that I say that, but I want to be able to go back and alter it later. So I'll show you how I could do that in Filter Storm. So here I just want to point out these are some of the tools that you have. You have the clone stamp, you have a healing brush, you have a blur tool, a smudge tool, you have a brush, you have a bunch of different kinds of brushes. Here's an effect brush. So you could paint an effect in just one area if you wanted to. You have a spray can, eraser, there's the magic wand, and you have a couple different types of selection tools. We keep losing Pierre. Pierre, are you dropping off? Are you wireless, Pierre? Okay, and then I also have lasso, different kinds of selection tools like the lasso and so forth. So you can make a selection if you're a Photoshop user. This will look familiar. There's my marching ants, and then I keep trying to grab my mouse, and then I can go up here and I can even do refine edge. So a lot of different things you can do with your selections in here. You can feather the edges. So if you wanted to create some kind of a marquee effect, you can. I'm going to deselect just by clicking on my image. Up here are different types of adjustments that I can do. You had to log off for your kid to play his game before bed. No problem. Oh, I keep forgetting you're not here. You're in Europe. Well, thanks for taking the time to. If you have to drop off at any time, Pierre, I am recording this. So thanks, or should I say, merci beaucoup, mon ami. So I do have a bunch of different types of effects that I can use here under the adjustments. So I can apply levels and curves, I can reduce noise. Here's my saturation, so I can certainly add saturation to my image. Now I happen to be on the gradient layer right now, so it's just doing the sky. Different types of effects here that I love. There are 4 different categories that you can work with. So I do this a lot too. I actually use that edges one, and then I sometimes paint another, put the other image, the original image in over top of it, and it just bumps up the edges. So you could use that one saved with edges and change the blending mode so that it just gives you a sharper outline on everything. You can get a vignette effect by using the lighting one. I've used that one before as well. Under stylize, I have used the glass and the posterize and the ripple. Some of these are really cool. And again, you can bring them in on a separate layer. Let me show you. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to hit done and don't save. And I'm just winging it here, but I'm going to go back out to my photo library. And let me just bring in another image. So for example, this one. These are some flowers. And I'm going to go into, I always like to duplicate the layer just so that I have it just in case I screw something up. And I'm on the original one up here at the top. So I can go in here to the effects. And for example, I mentioned edges. So if I apply edges, and then I can go in here and make some adjustments on the screen. Now you can also see at the bottom, you can adjust the edge color, you can adjust the threshold here. So, you know, if you want to get more or less of the lines. So I'm adjusting the edges. I'm going to click the check mark. So now when I go back in here, I can adjust that blending mode and maybe make it multiply. So now I'm getting a darker edge around the outside of the image. Oh wow, some funky stuff going on screen. Sorry about that. So again, I can get that kind of an effect. If that's too much, I can go in and adjust the opacity of that layer if I want to just get a lighter background. I'm telling you, this app, you'll get your money's worth in the first week using this app. It does have layers, smart selections. It does, absolutely. The only thing I wish it has was the masking feature, Pierre. That's the only thing it's really missing at this point. I do love it. I use it for everything. In the top right-hand corner, that curved arrow is your undo button. So you can always go back and undo anything back to where you saved it last. You can go in and change the image size. I've actually done this where I've had to go in and change the size of the image to blend photos together. I have a couple apps I love. There's one called Lumie, L-U-M-I-E, that I love. It gives really cool lighting effects, but it only saves it in a small, low-res form, which I hate. And so when I'm doing this trick where I'm combining it with the original image, I have to actually go in and resize it, which is a pain in the butt, but you can do it, and I've gotten it down to a science now, but it's not my favorite thing. But I love the app. I just haven't figured out a way to save it out in a higher res format. So these are some of the things you can do. You can do warping. So for example, if I wanted to warp this, I'm going to turn off that top layer. If I wanted to warp this image, I can go in here and warp my flowers if I want to. All kinds of things that you can do with this one. It's a pretty cool app. So again, it's $10, but I use it all the time, and I definitely got my money's worth out of it. So that's Photoshop Touch. And again, most of the cool processing things that I do, I actually bring them in to Photoshop Touch and I combine them on another layer. And this is a photo of my shoes I did recently. And again, I brought it in on a separate layer and I use the blending techniques. There are instances where I use multiple versions of the same. I'll just duplicate the layer and try different blending effects. Here's an example right here. This is my dog Lily, and I used an app I have called Moku Hanga. I'll show you that in a minute. And I wanted to go in and be able to soften the effect a little bit, so I brought it in on a bunch of different layers with a bunch of different effects, and I think I lost the detail in her eye, so I actually went in on a separate layer and painted some detail back in. Somebody was asking me a question. Can Photoshop open its files with layers? Yes. If you export this, you will export it as what's called a well, we all are familiar with PSD files in Photoshop, right? You can export it from here as a PSDX file. And this is one of the strengths of working with Photoshop Touch that all the other apps don't have. I mean, Filter Storm is great. It has a great masking feature, but I can actually upload this. So whether you have the paid subscription for Creative Cloud or whether you have a free one, if you want a free one, you have to leave early. No problem, Jessica. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for coming. If you want to just try the paid one, if you don't try the free one if you don't have the paid subscription for Creative Cloud, you can go to creative.adobe.com and set up a free account for yourself. You need an Adobe ID. If you already have one, you can just sign in with that one. If not, you'll need to create one, and then you can upload your images. So the first thing I did, I keep trying to use my mouse here, I went to the gear at the top, and I went to my account, and I told it to sign in with my account. So I did that first. And then when I go down here, I can actually upload my files to Creative Cloud. Actually, I think I do it here. Upload to Creative Cloud. And then you upload it. It keeps all the layers. It's the only app that allows you to export it out with all the layers intact. It will export it to Creative Cloud as a PSDX file, and then I believe you need to download a free plugin for Photoshop that allows you to read them, but then you can go on your computer to creative.adobe.com, sign into your account, find your images, and then just pull them down and open them right up in Photoshop with all the layers intact. So yes, that's the cool thing. I think there's lots of cool things about Photoshop Touch, but that's one of the cool things. I just think everybody should have this app because it is so powerful and gives you such ability to be able to pull things in on different layers with different blending modes, and then be able to get your Bill, you must be having problems because it keeps asking me to let you back in again. I don't know how many versions you have of yourself in here now, but are you having problems, Bill? You can let me know in the chat window if you're having trouble. So, oh, with CC it's built in? Excellent. Thanks, Pierre. I wasn't sure about that. Excellent. So you no longer have to download it if you're on Photoshop Creative Cloud. Thank you, Pierre, my friend. Okay, so you can see here that this is one that I did of a vase of flowers, and if I turn off the other one. So I used an app that I love called Auto Painter 2, which I'll show you in a minute. And this is the felt tip filter in Auto Painter 2. I freaking love it. But I lost a lot of detail. I mean, it's actually kind of hard to tell what it is. It's hard to tell it's a vase of flowers. And so if you, I brought it in here and I put the original photo on a separate layer, and I got a lot of the detail back in. Now that may be too dark for you, but you can go in and lighten it up a little bit. But you can see that I think it's much more interesting this way than it was to just have it with the auto painter effect. I think I lost a lot of detail. It's hard to tell what it is. So that's one of the things I do in here. So I'm not making a sales pitch for Adobe here, but I'm being honest. I use this app for everything. I just love it. It has so many cool features. Can we do time-lapse on the iPhone with an app? I have to think about that, Mary. I haven't done it. I'm sure there are. I think I talked to somebody recently who was doing it. I will look into it unless somebody else has an answer there. Okay, so that's Photoshop Touch, and we'll probably come back to that one. Other ones that I use, there's one here called Deluxe FX. I see this on Instagram a lot, and this happens to be an effect I'm not really all that crazy about. It's very popular on Instagram, but just because it's popular doesn't mean you have to like it. I'm just going to grab an image here, just randomly here. Just grab this one. This one I already had done an effect on, so let me go back to the original. Find the original image for that one. It's a cool old-fashioned looking sign at Santana Row here in San Jose. Okay, so there it is. There. Okay, so this is something I see people doing a lot. They're using these color apps. So this may not be the best photo to show this with. I see it may not be. Let me see if I can find a better image. I see a lot of beach scenes that people are doing on Instagram, and they're using this Deluxe FX app, and I'm not a big fan of that look. It's just kind of fake looking, but again, to each his own. I'm not sure if I'm going to get that kind of effect here. Let's see if I can make this one so you can see what I'm talking about. Deluxe FX has a lot of different color filters down here at the bottom, and boy, my screen's going wacky. I just upgraded to Mavericks. That might have something to do with it. You can apply all kinds of different rainbow effects, and this isn't really showing it the way I wanted to demonstrate it. But, you know, a lot of beach scenes. I guess I could just go to my Instagram account and just show you. See if I can find one of the beach scenes I'm talking about. They're always on here. It's just not my favorite. Yeah, usually there's hundreds of them. It figures today I'm not finding one. You know, when you're looking for something, there it is. There's an example right there. And you can see down at the bottom, they're using one called Deluxe Colors. So it's just a rainbow kind of effect that they apply on the photo. It's not my favorite, and I'm not putting anyone else down. I'm sure there are people who don't like mine either. It's just it's simply a rainbow effect that they put over the whole photo that changes the colors, and it's fine for other people. It's just not for me. So that's deluxe effect can be used for that one. It also allows you to add overlays, so you can add scratches, you can add, you know, bokeh effects, all kinds of things like that. That's kind of cool. And then you can adjust it if you want to go in and adjust the vibrance of it or the color or whatever. You can do that as well. Go back. So that's called deluxe effects. I don't use that one as much, but it's nice. Facetune is a good one. Facetune is good for faces, but it's also for other things as well. I'm going to go out here and open an image that I want to blur the background on. For example, I'll just grab this one. So I don't use everything in this one, but this is one of my favorite ones for blurring the background. If I scroll through here and go to the defocus, and then I have the option of blurring or defocusing. If I choose blur and I'm pinching and zooming here, I use this one a lot. I can go in here and blur. So I'm just kind of painting in my blur effect. And then I'm just pinching and zooming to move my image around to go in here. And you could use a stylus if you want to. I'm not, but I could. If you zoom in far enough, you can usually do a pretty good job. I'm just doing it quickly, but you get the idea. So there you can go in and blur out the background of the image. Other things that you can do in here, you can whiten teeth, you can adjust tones and so forth. Another really cool app that I love for faces is Perfect 365. Now there's some serious stuff you can do, but there's also, if I could find that one I do of my daughter, let me see if I can find it. There it is. Oh, looks like I've already painted on her face. I don't have the original. Yeah, I've already done the fantasy makeup on her. I don't know if I have the original in here. Let me see if I can find one that we could use. Give me just a second to find a face photo. I'll use myself. It doesn't recognize people with glasses. Nope, it doesn't like glasses for some reason. So let's see if I can find a better one. Okay, this isn't the most complimentary photo of myself, but there's one. And then you can go in, it puts spots in there. You can see where it puts key points. And then you can go in here and adjust. For example, if you go to face, you can choose to slim the face. You can choose to enhance the nose. I'm going to really blow it out here so you can see it's adding shadows on the side of the nose. Now you can go too far there. It makes my face look dirty. I don't want to quit. You can go in here, and now if I was smiling, you would be able to go in and adjust the teeth. You can apply lipstick. So this is all based on the original points that it put in. So if I wanted to put some lipstick on myself, now it's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job. So you can see that on the left-hand side there, it looks like some of the lipstick is off my lips entirely. And that can be fixed by going back in and editing those key points when you first brought in the photo. So if I go out of here and bring that photo back in again, or maybe I can find something that's better to show that one with. I have glasses on in that one too. I have a great photo of my daughter I use for this, but I can't find it. I don't know if it will recognize my face. There we go. So if I go in here and adjust those points, you can see on the left side of my lips, it's not really on target. So you can go in here now and make those adjustments before you come into the photo. And you know, I can go in and adjust the eye color. So if I wanted to change the color of my eyes, I can actually go in here and change the color. So maybe I want to give myself blue eyes. So it adjusted, made my eyes blue, and it does a pretty decent job. Now that's starting to look a little fake there, but you know, you can do a lot with this one. You can slim the face down, you can smooth the skin, lots of things you can do there. Oops, I do want to quit that one. So that's called Perfect 365. That's another one that I love. Etchings is another favorite one. This one's really good for architecture. So it's just called Etchings. I'm pretty sure this one was free, but I honestly don't remember at this point. So I'm just choosing a photo. It works very well with architecture, although I have used it on people before. And so here's my photo. Down here I have a bunch of different filters. Spectrum is probably my favorite because, as you saw, I like lots of color in my images. I'm pretty sure this one's free. It's called Etchings. I had them all for so long. If it costs anything, it's just a couple bucks. I honestly don't remember, Christina. It might be free. I know I bought the extra pack. So right here where it says Florence FX pack, I bought these extras. So, you know, I don't often use the zombie one. In fact, I've never used the zombie one. That's not my thing. But I do love this first one, this Spectrum. There's one here that makes it look like a postage stamp. There's one that makes it look like a piece of currency. I'm not sure why you'd use it. It's cool. I just have never used it. I actually like the effect. I just don't like the dollar thing around the outside. So I might actually go in and erase or put a mask around that outside edge. But this is one that I quite often use that trick where I bring it into Photoshop Touch, because I really, really like, I like the powerful colors in the image here. And then I might bring it back in with the original and do a little blending mode technique. So here I can adjust the brightness, I can adjust the width of the lines if you want it to be a bolder line or a thinner line, whatever you like. When you click the check mark at the top, it gives you the ability to save it. Now, it took me a while. When I first got this app, I didn't know how to do this in the beginning. If you click down at the bottom, where it says save to camera roll, it's saving a preview. You want to scroll over to advanced export, and that's where it allows you to save it in the original image, original resolution. So if it's one that you want to use over and over again, you know, and get really good quality that you can actually print, that's a good app. That's called Etchings. That's another favorite of mine. There's tons of in here that I'm just trying to think of which ones to show you. Glaze is another one I use a lot. And again, for my style of apps. No problem, Stephanie. And make sure you go to creativecloudsanjose.com and look up this event. I will post the recording link on there for you. So here I'm going out and choosing an image. And Glaze is a really cool one because it gives you all types of different effects that you can use. So down here at the bottom, they're not named. And I think that's kind of odd. But I know the purple flower ones, I like to use those a lot. So, you know, maybe, for example, this one. I wish they were named, and they're not. So it just, there's different kinds of effects that it can apply. This is a good app. Now there, I've lost a lot of the detail, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of like I'm looking through a rainy window. I could pull that one into Photoshop Touch with the original and a blending mode and get some of that detail back again. So, and then you have some settings in here that you can apply. You can change some of the settings. That's a good one. That's called Glaze. I see that I'm running out of time, so I'm picking up the pace a little bit. Mokuhanga is a new one to me. I believe I paid for this one, but I'm really loving this one a lot. This is a pretty cool app. So let me see if I can find, I don't know what it'll do with my face. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so I may not like that very much, but I can go under adjustments. I can play with the colors, so I can oversaturate a little bit more if I want. I can adjust the strength of the image. And again, you may not like this look the way it is, but if you pull it into Photoshop Touch and you add the original image, you can do some really cool things. So you can still get that effect, but you can get a lot more of the original image back again if you want to. It's got a lot of different techniques down here that you can see. You can scroll through and apply, and then there's also under multi-block. So if you wanted to go in and create, you know, some unusual color effects. I really like this one. This one was a couple bucks. I don't remember how much it was, but I really like this one. I'm using this one a lot. It's called Mokuhanga. I have no idea what that means, but it's a cool app. Now, that's a good one if you're like me and you're trying to make artwork. When you're posting them on Instagram, if your photo, you want to keep the whole photo and you know, if Instagram is forcing you to turn it into a square, Square Ready Pro is a good one because then you can bring in your image. I can go out here and just grab an image. Oops, I hit the wrong button. I want to choose photo. So I'm just randomly grabbing something here. So here's an image, and I want to add to the background. Here I'm adding black, but I can also go in here and add color. So if I want to pick up a color maybe that's in my image, you know, like there's a really nice looking tan color in the building, I can add a color. Quite often I just use white, or I might use black. However you want to frame the image so that when you bring it into Instagram you don't lose any of it. And the iPhone 5S does allow you to shoot a square image. I have heard that. Thank you, Docs. You're right. I just haven't upgraded yet. I think January I'll be able to upgrade to that one. So that's Square Ready Pro. Grunge is another good one. I love Grunge. It also has a bunch of filters, so if you want to get a really cool effect on buildings or on people, this is a building I saw in Munich. And again, it has a bunch of presets in here, and then you can make adjustments as you need to. Does a really cool effect. Love Grunge. That's another good one. Oh gosh, I could just go on and on. I'm running out of time. Filter Storm is a good one for being able to do masking. So I'm going to load an image. This one also has layers, but you cannot export your photo out with the layers. That's the only bummer of it. And I keep grabbing the same image just because I'm running out of time and I don't want to waste time looking. So here's my original image. If I want to do something to it, like for example, if I want to desaturate it. So here I've desaturated my image. Why did it only do? Let me try something different. That wasn't working the way I wanted it to. Let me try black and white, we'll say. I don't know what's going on with the background, why that's not. Oh, it's showing me before and after. Duh, stupid me. Okay, so it's showing you on the left the after and on the right before. I can't believe I did that. And if you want to mask, you can click the little mask button. And now it's going to allow you to use your brush, and you can go in here and control what you want to paint in and out. And of course I would pinch and zoom, and it's building a layer mask. So I can go in here and control how much I want to show of something. I have an image that I did this on recently that is in my iPhoneography. It is in this one, I believe. Give me just a second to find it. Here. So this was a couple women I saw at a farmer's market event, and I just used Filter Storm to go in and mask out the background of the image. Super easy to do in Filter Storm, and I'm sorry I'm getting Facebook updates. What other apps? There's plenty of others, but again, those are enough to get you started. Night modes is a good one for, where is night modes? It's a good one for taking nighttime shots. It's in one of these. Yeah, that's a good one for taking nighttime shots. I want to show you, thank you, Vicky. Oh, sorry, Vivian. Thank you, Vivian. And under Auto Painter, there's Auto Painter 1, 2, and 3. I love these. I happen to like Auto Painter 2 the best. These are a couple bucks each. I like the felt tip pen version of filter, I should say, in Auto Painter 2. So I'm going to go out here and grab an image. Just grab anything, and if you click over here and choose felt tip pen, it does an amazing job of creating a beautiful piece of artwork depending on the image. It's not great with faces, and again I pulled this one into Photoshop Touch with the original using a blending mode just to get some detail back, and I just get beautiful images. So you can actually watch it building the image, and the detail brush is the last thing it does, so when it gets to 100% for the detail brush it will be done. And again, I love to pull this one into Photoshop Touch, pull a little bit of the detail back in, but leave a lot of the felt tip. Isn't that cool? And it looks like it was created with markers. It's just a beautiful effect. Yeah, so this one I just absolutely love. So when I save this and go out and look at it, so I want to go back to my camera roll. Yeah, that's a cool effect. I just love that. Love that look. Okay, I'm losing. All of a sudden my iPhone is acting up for some reason. Okay, it's coming up on the other screen. I'm not sure why. Bear with me. It's showing up on my other screen all of a sudden. I just upgraded to Mavericks. That might be part of why this is happening. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me quit out of Reflector and see if I can get it to work. 1 second, please. Yeah, all of these I get at the App Store. So looks like I'm losing Reflector here. Reflector doesn't want to reload again for some reason, so I'm not sure what it's doing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing at this point. I have more, but for now I'm going to just go in here and start listing some of the apps that I used today that I can talk to you about. That way you can make some notes of them if you want to, so you don't have to go back and watch the recording again if you don't want. So let me pull up my listing here of the ones that I use. So I showed you Photoshop Express. I showed you, let me make this bigger so you can see it a little bit better. I did not cover that one, Pierre. Do you want to, I don't know that one. Do you want to give us some input on that one? I'm not familiar with that app. I used Photoshop Touch. If you want to type something in there, I'd love to hear more about it. I used Snapseed. We did 100 cameras. We did Shock My Pick. We did Tangled FX. We did Deluxe FX. Lightroom styles for old film looks. Oh, I'll have to try that one out. Thank you. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm going to grab that one right after we're done here. I also showed etchings. There are many more that I didn't get to, but these are some of my favorites. Grunge. Grunge is a good one. I used Perfect 365 for faces. I didn't show you Lumi. I like Lumi, but that only saves in low res. Oh, I know another good one that I didn't get a chance to show you is Lens Flare. Lens Flare is where you can, gosh, let me see if I can get my phone back up again. Unless you're all ready to leave, if you want me to show you, or we could do another session another day. Let me, so I can show you Lens Flare. Ah, it is coming back up. Okay, give me just a minute. Put these notes off to the side. We'll get back to these. I just want to show you Lens Flare because that one's a really cool one. So let me pop this up here at the top. I'll just take 1 minute to share with you this Lens Flare. So hopefully you can see my screen. Pull this off to the side. Lens Flare is a really cool one that is good for, I had a photo here that I took the other day that, let's see, it's popping up on the other screen again. It's acting goofy. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it's not showing, it's showing on my other screen. Okay, anyway. This is the one that I did, this is the original photo, or maybe it was this one. Gosh, it's showing on my other screen for some reason. Darn it. Sorry everyone, I thought I could show you, but it doesn't look like it's going to let me. So what I'm going to do instead is just talk through it. Give me a minute, I'll take a screenshot and I'll just walk you through it. Reflection is giving me a hard time here right now. So I'm going to pull up the screenshot. I'm just ad-libbing here. So I'm going to stop sharing, and because I can't pull it up to show you right now, I'm just going to pull up a screenshot I did of it. So bear with me. So this is one I use called Lens Flare. There's also one called Lens Light. They're very similar. How many of these are available for Android? I have no idea, Linda. I'm sure you can find a lot of similar ones if they're not all the same for Android. This is a scene I mentioned earlier that I like to shoot directly into the sun. There was a little bit of the light coming through, that little sunball, fireball thing there coming through the palm trees, but it wasn't as pronounced as it is here. I used an app called Lens Flare. and you have a bunch of different lens flare effects that you can paint on your image. So I went in and saturated the hell out of it in Snapseed, and then I used this lens flare, and I was able to mimic that, pull that little light source right over top of the original, and it gave me that kind of, those little bokeh kind of looks, those little sun dots going across the image. I added that in with an app I use called Lens Flare. So that's kind of a cool effect, and I love that one. And I apologize, I'm having problems with my my reflector app, and I wasn't able to show that one to you. But these are some of the apps that I talked about today. Let me see if I had some other ones. Do you have any other questions or any thoughts before we end? I mentioned grunge. I mentioned Moku Hanga. If I could type, that would really help. Moku Hanga is a really cool one. That's one of the ones I've been playing with a lot lately. I mentioned Square Ready Pro. I've got etchings in there, right? What other ones? I mentioned night modes. I'm not anti-Android. I just don't know anything about Android. So Auto Painter is another one I love. There's 1, 2, and 3. And I love number 2. And I love the felt pen. The felt pen filter. Filter Storm is another good one. That one allows you to do masking. And there's many, many others, but hopefully this will be enough to at least get you started. So any questions on anything that we've covered here? Halftones? Is that an app? I'm not familiar with halftones. So you told me two here that I'm not familiar with. Halftones, and what was the other one you mentioned? VSCO Cam. I got to write those down. So those are two I will be downloading after we're done here today. I'm not sure what they are. Is halftones worth getting, Pierre? Must be, or you wouldn't have mentioned it. So tell me what it does. I'm not familiar with it. Oh, I don't remember saying anything about Spectre filtering, but glaze, absolutely. Glaze. Spectrum filter, I don't have that one, but I must have mentioned something that was similar. I don't remember that one. For removing blemishes, I would say Facetune is a really good one for removing blemishes, or Perfect 365, but Facetune I like better. Oh, halftones, I have that one. Yes, I do. It's either called Modern Grunge or Grunge. When you launch the app, it says Grunge. I always struggle with what the actual name of that one is. I'm looking on my phone now to find out what the actual name is. If you search for Grunge, it says Grunge in the app, but when you launch it, it says Modern Grunge. So it's one of those two. So I'm going to stop the recording, but I am going to ask you